Hello there. Today we're going to be talking about how to take notes while playing VGC. Let's get. Ah. Oh. I just heard all of my viewers with gifted kid syndrome just groan collectively at the idea of having to take notes. But hey, it's for VGC, it's fun, so stay with me. Let's get right into it. First, I'm going to make a case for why you should take notes. And the big reason is because our working memory is very limited. Now, look, we're all human, okay? We're all limited by our hardware, our physical hardware. And, it says in this article here that the capacity of our working memory, or the number of items we can keep in our mind at one time, is pretty low. Between 3 and 5 information chunks, it says. So there's a lot that the game tells you straight up, but not everything. In our current version of the game, you can go in and you'll see the field conditions, right? You can see how many turns of weather are left, how many turns of terrain are left, tailwind, trick room, stat changes, but there's also a lot that the game doesn't tell you, and they're important. Now, the most important things I think that you need to take note of are what your opponent led, what you led, what their turn 1 play was, and what Pokemon they brought. You can also write down things like counting how many sleep turns have passed, speed interactions between Pokemon where it's not obvious, and damage calcs, because another thing that doesn't get told to us is our opponent's EV spreads, right? We're in this age of open team sheet, and I hear a lot of people say like, oh, well, it's open sheet, I don't need to take notes anymore because I don't need to write down my opponent's moves. But there's still so much that doesn't get told to you. So, when you attack into an opponent's Pokemon and it does a damage that you weren't expecting, then you should probably write that down because it tells you something about their spread, something that the game doesn't tell you. Now, I'm not saying you won't remember whose Incineroar is faster. What I'm saying is, if you write it down, you don't have to. And when you don't have to, that's just more brain space that you have for other things, like thinking about your game plan, what adjustments you're going to make, thinking about what the right read is. And listen, VGC is an extremely difficult game. So the more edges we can get, the more brain space we can free up to think about these more complex things, the better you can play. It's as simple as that. Because, when you're in game 3 of your last round, day 1 of a regional, and you're tired and you're hungry and you need to think about what play to make, it's the difference between going, wait, what did they do turn 1 of game 1? I think they did this. And being able to just go, oh, they protected. Okay, cool. It's a big deal. Every little thing matters. Next, I want to talk about when to actually take the notes, because if it's detracting from your play, that's a bad thing. And it shouldn't, because we actually have a lot of downtime as we're playing the game as the turn animations play out. So that's when you take your notes. When you see something switch, you write it down as the switch animation is happening. When you see their leads come out before the turn timer starts, that's when you write down what they led. You do not want your notes to detract from your play, so they should be simple and they should come when the timer is not ticking. Now, I want to take you into a page of my notes from an event and show you an example of what this might actually look like on a piece of paper. So this is a page from my notes from the most recent regional I went to. The first thing I do is I divide a page into sixths. And I write down, I make a box for each Pokemon and write their name in it. And then in the top right, I make this little, again, divide a little corner of the page into 6 sections, and those are for my leads. So first thing I write down is what I lead. So you'll see in this game, game 1, I led Sneasler Hydreigon. Game 2, I led Sneasler Hydreigon. Game 3, I led Sneasler Goldengo. Sometimes I'll write what I brought in the back as well. Not always. You'll see for game 3, I didn't. I just like it for sometimes being able to go back and remember what happened during the set. And also it helps me improve because I can look at what I brought and go, okay, did I bring the right forward? Did I approach this properly? Now, you'll see The next thing I write down is what they brought to each game. So the 1, 2, and 3, that means they brought it to game 1, game 2, game 3, and I write a dot next to it to indicate whether they led it or not. The next thing I talked about that was important was their turn 1 play. So you'll see P2 here. The slash means it got flinched. I went for fake out onto it. Game 2, turn 1, they switched into Annihilate. In game 3, they went for Terra Blast into my Sneasler. I also write down things that the game doesn't necessarily tell you, like, you know, when they terra'd. And when you're in the game, it does tell you that they terra'd, except, you know, it's not like it keeps a log of that for previous games. And I also wrote a dot to indicate if it was turn 1, whether they terra'd or not, because I feel like that is kind of relevant. If they're willing to blow their Terra on turn 1, that's a really good piece of information. After that, you know, this right here, I read a little Z and took some tally marks for sleep turns. You'll see I also do that for my own Pokemon, right? My Sneasler fell asleep in this game, so I was keeping track of my sleep turns up there. I also, you know, speed tiers that are relevant. You know, not all Annihilapes are max speed, but their ape was faster than my Goldango, so I wrote an arrow up indicating, you know, faster than Goldango. I also wrote down relevant damage calcs. See, they were Clear Amulet Garchomp, not Life Orb Garchomp. So Earthquake did 85% to Goldango. Dragon Claw did 90% to my Hydreigon. Now, the point of this isn't to, you know, have you copy how I write things down. You know, a lot of this is chicken scratch, right? I can understand this being difficult for someone who's not me to just look at this and interpret this without me explaining every little thing. The point is, you want a notation system that works for you. You want something that you can read that makes sense to you, and something you can do quick, something you can do fast, because like I said, we really don't want our notes to be taking away from our ability to play the game. So, you know, make sure you're writing down what you led, what they led, what they brought, what their turn 1 play is, things that the game doesn't tell you that you need to keep track of, like speed interactions, sleep turns, and yeah, just kind of go from there, develop your system, and find something that works for you. So that's how you take notes while playing VGC. Just to recap, the reason we want to take notes is because our working memory can only fit so many things at a time, and if we use the piece of paper as an extension of our minds, then we can think about more complex things during the actual turns. We want to make sure that we're writing down what we led, what they led, what Pokemon they brought, and also their turn 1 play. The reason for that is because the most important turns of any game are turn 0 and turn 1. So that allows us to alleviate a lot of mental load and be able to play a lot more freely. And that's that. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. This was a very requested topic by a lot of my friends, so hopefully this was able to answer a lot of the questions that you guys had. And if there's any other high-level VGC topics that you would like me to go over, leave them in the comments section down below. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.